just start by mentioning that I certainly appreciate the exercise of a bicycle. And my brief opening remarks is that the one thing I'd like to just sort of add is that, and I know today that there was a lot of great words said about Major Taylor, his legacy, his history. You had Greg LeMond, Edwin Moses, and that's great. But one thing that I am certainly concerned about is the fact that this celebration comes at a potentially interesting time in how we perceive not just a man and his legacy in sports, but maybe if we have enough people of vision and of leadership and power, how we might actually move from celebrating history to a much needed vision of transportation, of a civilized society, and have just plain fun. Some of the neatest little weekend moments that my wife and I have is bicycling on the Minuteman Trail that starts in Somerville and ends out in Bedford. Some of my nicest bicycle trips on the road have been in Chicago, where sometimes I rent a bike in downtown Chicago and ride. They have 17 unbroken miles of bicycle paths from 9 miles or so north of down the loop in Chicago to 8 miles past the deep south side of Chicago. He's a general sports historian, and one passage of his book I would like to read with you if you have not read it. Taylor's wealth and fame as a black athlete set him apart from other people in Worcester, where he was recognized as an important local personality by both blacks and whites. He straddled the black and white worlds in a unique way, with a foot in each, yet belonging completely to neither. He had succeeded in the white world, traveled extensively in Europe and Australia, was sophisticated and at ease with influential people, and lived in an extremely comfortable fashion befitting his star status. On the other hand, he was devoted to the John Street Baptist Church and remained close to the black community in Worcester. Blacks respected him for having earned his reputation and money by hard work. He was an example to them of a black person who had been able to succeed in life through his talent, tenacity, and moral uprightness. Soon after he hung up his racing wheels for good, Taylor decided he needed more training in engineering and applied for admission to the Worcester Polytechnic Institute. The official reason for his rejection was the lack of a high school diploma. The reality was, Negroes simply did not go to white colleges in 1910. I wonder what Major Taylor would have thought of Barack Obama. Yeah. Our second presenter will be David Herlihy. Did I get that right? All right. Historian and freelance writer, author of several books, and his book on the bicycle was winner of the 2005 Sally Hacker Prize sponsored by the Society of the History of Technology. David has written a translation of the history of the Tour de France, and he is currently working on a book on Frank Lenz, a writer in the 1890s in the era of Major Taylor, who tried to ride his bicycle around the world and disappeared for good in Turkey. David, when he wrote The Bicycle, not when he wrote The Bicycle, but when in trying to resurrect the legacy of Pierre Lallement, as the French immigrant who held the first patent for the bicycle, but many other people got credit for it, when he dared to try to speak kindly of Pierre Lallement, he engendered a global outcry, starting with sheer utter poppycock. scolded Derrick Roberts, founder of the Fellowship of Cycling Old Timers, a British historical cycling club that boasts 1,200 members from a dozen countries. And then one other was a French guy, a historian at the Sorbonne in Paris, said, "How would you like to be told that some obscure Parisian invented the light bulb and not Thomas Edison?" Our third presenter will be Jeanette Greenwood. She's associate professor of history at Clark University, where she teaches U.S. history, specializing in courses on race and ethnic relations. And two things about Jeanette, if you don't know it already. She's an ardent Red Sox fan, to the point of having her 14-year-old daughter play hooky when the Sox won the World Series. And she promised her daughter that if the Red Sox ever won the World Series, they'd go to the victory parade. And she also amazingly admitted to the newspaper that they had a party afterwards, and where her daughter, Susanna, said, "We freaked out. We hugged and high-fived. We scared the dog." They ran out, the dogs. Then the family ran out into the backyard, shook up 2 beer bottles, and sprayed them on each other. In a serious small world way, I noticed that Jeanette, among the mentors of her students of history, one of them was researching the Miles Standish baseball team. And the student got much of his information from the Boston Guardian, a newspaper dedicated to winning equality for blacks. Now, the Guardian just happened to be published by William Monroe Trump. University of Central Florida, in the College of Business Administration. Don't you love those long titles, man?
About half my email.
Keith and the program, I've known the program for a long time. I feel like kindred souls with them, because every year, both of us, both during the times of the college football bowls and the NCAA Final Four basketball tournament, both of us publish different versions of the usually disastrous graduation rates of the top teams in the bowl games and the NCAA tournament. And I love what Keith has said when once asked about the continued ridiculous level of head coaches in NCAA Division I football. You get grade, they literally grade the colleges A, B, C, D, and F. And there was one college that said, "We're doing okay, we got a C." And Keith said, "C just means you're doing what you've always been doing."